One.
1. This meeting.
Oh, it didn't do it this time. Anyways, welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the social media and sports podcast. And Matt, our audience has about a week before we force them to have you give them their nickname. So they still haven't given us a real nickname so that we can, shout them out on the podcast. But they got about a week before it's all into Matt's hands.
You don't want that. You do
don't.
not want that.
I thought I did until what you said last week, low key. When you said the lessers, I was like, no, we're not doing it.
It's hard to come up with something involving less that doesn't sound negative.
What are you trying to say? I don't know how to feel about that statement, sir.
That's okay. Because the best thing I came up with this week was less heads, and I was like, that doesn't make much sense. That's the best thing I can come up with. This is going to be rough, people. I need something to go on.
Well, I'm just really glad you didn't say more heads. So, I mean, that would be bad.
Yeah, that'd be bad. We get sued by the university. Wait, no. No. This is a family show. Oh, God.
All right. You're right. Anyways, so on to today's topic of the podcast. And as you all know, we are the social media and sports podcast. We talk about what social media says about relative sports events. And today we're going to talk about the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And as the ones on YouTube can see, I'm even still rocking a playoff beard, even though that's more of an NBA thing. I feel like Matt's got his playoff beard. But we're going to go with it. I think we're going to go with it. I think that's fair. So, anyways, we're going to start off in the AFC, and we're going to start on the game on Saturday. And if you probably could have guessed already, the number one trending sports topic during this game had to do with Patrick Mahomes' ankle. So my first question, Matt, even though the Chiefs won 27-20, how much did Mahomes' ankle change the trajectory of this game?
None. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Les. I like Jacksonville. We'll get to Jacksonville. I'm going to explain why I like Jacksonville. But Kansas City is Kansas City. Even on the drive where they had to put Chad Henne in, they still look like a lesser version of Kansas City. They're Kansas City. They have a good roster. They have a deep roster. They've addressed all their needs. They were probably going to be fine in that game, even with Chad Henne had to play more than one series. And then Patrick Mahomes went Patrick McCortizone and got his ankle fixed up, and now he came back in and played fairly well. And I mean, a hobbled Patrick Mahomes is still one of the best pocket passers in the league. You can't deny that. But even if he hadn't been able to go out there, I still thought Kansas City was going to win. Isaiah Pacheco is a godsend at running back. They have the best security blanket in the league in Travis Kelce. They've got Chris Jones and Frank Clark up front. Jacksonville is still inexperienced. They're still young. I know Doug Peterson's been there, but he's not Andy Reid. They were going to be fine. Now, going forward, the Bengals are a lot tougher team. The Bengals have their number. The Bengals have a very good defense that's playing out of their gourds right now. They've got Joe Burr that's going to be fun. Burr, whatever. I can't purr like a cat. The point being, this week is the week where the ankle's going to be the big topic. If that ankle is anything less than 75%, you have to pretty much favor the Bengals in this case. I mean, they're 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. They've had their number, and that was with everybody healthy. And I thought they were going to beat the Jaguars even if they didn't have Patrick Mahomes. I can't say that about the defending AFC champion Bengals.
So, anyways, I'm going to shout them out because no one else will. The Chiefs defense stepped up. They had some very timely stops early on and practically sealed it with 2 turnovers. Major props to Steve Spagnuolo and that Chiefs defense. But, Matt, this is where we were talking off camera, and this is where that reference that I told you that you're really going to like, this is where this comes in. Because as good as Patrick Mahomes is, as you know, he's my favorite quarterback in the league, along with my son, who also played in this game. As good as he is, and as awesome as performances as he's had, to me, this is his most impressive performance, and here's why. First couple possessions, he was Superman making superhuman plays. Then the injury happened. And this was symbolic to the moment in the movie Batman vs. Superman, where Batman hits Superman with the kryptonite gas bomb, stripping him of his powers. Mahomes had to adjust from being Superman to being human mid-game. And he adjusted, he fought through the pain, and managed out a win. But also trending after the game, as you said, we're going to talk about how his ankle is for the Jacksonville game. He made it very clear he's good to go. So to me, being able to adjust a superhuman to human mid-game like that, it's one thing to do it midweek with a week's worth of practice, but to do it mid-game like that is impressive to me.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I didn't think if it mattered if they had him or not. I mean, he probably got that cortisone shot. He was ready to go. But even with Chad Henne, I think the Chiefs were in a prime position to win that game because, like you said, the defense was just playing out of their mind to the fact where I think
They stepped up.
if there's any injury to Ladarius Sneed, I think that could be even worse for them going forward in that game against the Bengals because I think he was down toward the end of the game. So that's even an impactful injury to watch, even more so than maybe even Patrick Mahomes is. If they're down a guy in that secondary trying to contain Jamar Chase and T. Higgins without with a less than perfect Mahomes, that could lead to a lot of issues for Kansas City going forward.
It absolutely could. And now we're going to get on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that I feel like you have more to say about. And the post and what inspired, I guess, this top portion of their segment is that post going around that Trevor Lawrence had never lost a game on Saturday until this one, which is still incredible. Well, what's even crazier, Matt, and I've been telling people this, he never lost a regular season game until he turned pro. Like, regardless of what, I mean, obviously he's on a great trajectory right now, but regardless of how his NFL career pans out, that is a staple in its own right. That is something that football fans should recognize if they don't already.
Yeah.
But anyways, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm getting into the topic. You tell me what you're about to say.
Yeah, no, you need to get the. I was going to have a take on the topic. So
okay. So, anyways, so that being said, what did we learn about Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars this postseason?
The one thing we learned foremost is that Urban Meyer needs to be sent to the Hague for war crimes for what he did to this team last year. And the second thing, and it's going to be weird to say this, is that Jacksonville may have the best team in the AFC South for the next 10 years, Les. And it pains me to say that. But I look around the AFC South, it's the Texans, it's the Colts who are starting finally to rebuild a proper way, and the Titans who are entering kind of their downward trend, maybe reworking a lot of their offense out of Todd Downing's out. Maybe Derrick Henry gets a little bit older. They're going to have to move on a quarterback from Ryan Tannehill. And I see that this is finally the chance Jacksonville has had offensively to go out and actually dominate the division. They've got the right coach. He's got a Super Bowl pedigree. They've got a great young quarterback. They've got offensive weapons. I was wrong about Christian Kirk. I thought that was going to be on the NFL top 10 list of like top 10 most overpaid free agent signings. I was wrong about that. They've revitalized Evan Ingram. Travis Etienne looks amazing. They've got a decent young defense. And they're going to get Calvin Ridley next year. I know the guy hasn't played in 2 years. When he did, he's an impact receiver. He could be he could be that guy again. I don't know. And, I would be a lot more high on them if they weren't the Jaguars, who, when they get good, have this tendency to just be like, oh, we're going to trade Jalen Ramsey. We're going to trade Calais Campbell. We're going to trade Yannick Ngakoue. We're going to get rid of Saxonville after about a year and a half of success. And that's why it's kind of hard for me to say that. But we learned that Jacksonville is for real. And it's like I was teasing you throughout the year. Jacksonville's about to mess around and make the playoffs. With that offense, they're going to be in the playoff picture for a long time to come if they keep that thing together. And say what you will about the way they went down. It's a young team in a big spot in Kansas City. It's going to happen. They're not ready for the prime time. The lights are still too bright. But in a year or two, Jacksonville is going to be a veteran team with a lot of great offensive weapons. It's going to be hard to count the Jags out in the AFC race, especially as other quarterbacks age and Trevor Lawrence's matures and becomes even better.
Matt, if you remember, Season 2, Episode 1 of the Less is More Sports podcast, you and I both predicted that after the final regular season game, Jacksonville versus Indianapolis, that this was going to be Trevor Lawrence's coming out party. And it was.
It was.
Like you said, and I'm going to add to everything you said, the South runs through Jacksonville. The AFC South runs through Jacksonville from here on out. They're here to stay. I mean, like we predicted preseason on the podcast, Trevor Lawrence took that big step forward, not just from his own numbers, but here's what's crazy. He helped the Jags improve from the worst offense his rookie year to 10th best in year 2. And of course, we talk about the team improvements, winning the AFC South, first playoff appearance, had a legendary comeback versus the Chargers and against the Chiefs. Of course, he grinded out some plays. Agnew, of course, had an unfortunate fumble, and then he had a costly interception. But he showed he belonged. And another stat that not a lot of people are talking about is you talk about how Christian Kirk you thought was like going to be a top 10 worst free agent signings. You talked about the revitalization of Evan Ingram. Well, between Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Zay Jones, they all had career years playing next to Trevor Lawrence this year. That's a stat that should not be overlooked. My son is here. He's here to stay. He's not going anywhere. But one thing I will say is everyone's talking about Calvin Ridley, though. They do have to remember he has not played in 2 years, like you alluded to. So we don't know what exactly he's going to bring. But to me, that's irrelevant. I think, if anything, like we said, this proves that the AFC South goes through Jacksonville from here on out. And as a Colts fan, that's unfortunate. But as Trevor Lawrence being my son, I'm very proud.
Yeah, I understand that totally. It pains my heart so much. But Jacksonville is at least a fun team to have to compete against for the next 10 years.
Now I'm going to quote that referee at that game and say, everybody shut up. And then we're going to move on to the next AFC game and the Bills and Bengals. And of course, everything that we're talking about on social media, Damar Hamlin's in the house. There's no way that the Bills lose, right? And then they did. They did. They 27-10 Cincinnati. And of course, all the talk pregame was the snow's coming down. The Bengals got the icy white uniforms, but they didn't have the white Tiger helmets, which was very lame on their part. But then, of course, you had the pregame clip of Joe Burr making that no-look pass in warm-ups. And then when that happened, all the Joe Burr comments started flooding Twitter and never looked back. He started 9 of 9 with 2 touchdowns in the first quarter and just diced them up for the entire rest of the game.
Right.
And of course, but Matt, the crazy part is from a social media standpoint, Twitter would have exploded if the Bills came back and won, because you want to know why?
Why?
That Jamar Chase touchdown that got called back. Matt,
Yeah,
what were your thoughts? What was that a catch? Was it not a catch? Was this a Dez Bryant? Did he catch it moment?
I don't think anybody knows what a catch is anymore, and we're just like we're just saying arbitrary rules now to see if we can make how we can make the most controversy week in and week out. Because to me, that was a catch. By the time the ball come loose, he was already basically out of bounds. He got the 2 feet in. To me, on an end zone play, if you get 2 feet in the end zone, forget it. You're heading out anyway. Forget it. That's a touchdown. You got the 2 feet. You're in the end zone. Because if the ball breaks the plane on a running play, even like on the Joe Mixon run where everyone was like, did he get in? Did he not get in? And they ruled that a touchdown. The ball was there. The feet were down. Just forget it. Call the play dead the minute it hits the end zone, unless he just drops it. And I'm talking about like drops it. To me, it was, but I'm not an NFL official, and I don't even think NFL officials know anymore. So say la vie.
So anyways, as for back to the Twitter coaches, they're all calling out Sean McDermott. How much of this game do you feel like was his fault?
I don't know if I'd exactly call out Sean McDermott for this. I know he's the head coach, but it seems to me Buffalo just had a weird offensive game plan. And if there's anybody who's going to get scapegoated for this, I bet it's Ken Dorsey, because Buffalo's offense just made no sense. Yeah, I know that like playing at home is their great advantage, but it seemed to me that every play was just Josh Allen YOLO pass. No looking, Uncle Rico throwing over the mountain every damn play. And yeah, I guess you could blame Sean McDermott for like the lack of a run game, if you will, because I thought Cook was coming into his own these past few weeks and they just never utilized him. 14 runs for like 4 yards and 1 first down, I think was the statistic, something crazy like that. But it just didn't make any sense. I mean, you're not utilizing Stephon Diggs at all. You're trying to chuck up passes.
He got 10 targets. He did get 10 targets. He got 10 targets.
But still, the most important balls are going like to Gabriel Davis or just yeeting it, just yeeting the ball like a jaded millennial down the field. So
Yeet.
it's kind of like you kind of wonder what's going on with Ken Dorsey there. And then you look at it, it's like the Bill. I think the issue is that the Bills are just like a few players away from being, oddly enough, to use lack of a better term, like elite. They have not drafted a Pro Bowler in 4 years. They've acquired other guys who have made the Pro Bowl, like Diggs, Von Miller, etc. But they haven't drafted one in 4 years. They're just a very solid team with a couple of gaping holes, and one of them is running back. There are a couple questionable, weird things about the defense, but I don't know how much of this is on Sean McDermott and how much of this is just on Buffalo's offensive game plan, which is just crazy to me. I mean, I know you're playing the Bengals. The Bengals are going to get their roses. They're going to score a lot of points. But you have to come up with a more complex, balanced offense than just Josh Allen throwing the ball down the field and praying someone's there to catch it. So, to me, the scapegoat here would probably be Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, who has interviewed for a couple head coaching positions. So who knows what's going to happen there? But this isn't part of the question. But I will admit that to me, this may be the end of like what we determined as like the window is not shut. Don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it's starting to close a little bit. Because if you look at what happened after the game, Stephon Diggs was not happy. He ran out of the locker room, had to be taken back in for the final speech. They've lost Brian Dable as we get further separated from Brian Dables, who's doing a great job with the Giants now. As we get further separated from that, we're going to see like if Josh Allen reverts to being more of a turnover machine as he was when he was younger. The window's not shut for Buffalo. As long as they've got Josh Allen, as long as they've got that defense, they're going to be in it every year. But they're not drafting Pro Bowl guys. They've got an unhappy Stephon Diggs. They're starting to get their coaching personnel poached by other teams who want to emulate them. This could be the start of the sliding window for Buffalo. And that's what really scares me here. And I don't think that's going to fall on Sean McDermott. I think that's going to fall on Ken Dorsey. And I think that's going to fall on whoever the running backs coach for the Bills is. I don't think that's going to be on McDermott.
I'm going to be honest. I actually don't even think it's all Ken Dorsey's fault because, and I don't know. I want to give credit to Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo and a captain. I'm just going to call him Captain Lou because I cannot pronounce his last name to save my life.
Yeah, we'll just go with that.
Captain Lou. Yeah, Captain Lou is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league as far as I'm concerned. And he drew up a great scheme for him, and I give him all the credit in the world. But, I'm very critical of quarterbacks that don't show up in playoff games, and Josh Allen did not. No. I'm going to be honest, he looked very shaky back there. Every time he dropped back, he looked nervous, and I don't know. And I don't know if something was wrong or if the scheme that Captain Lou drew up was just that good. But either way, that can't happen. You're at home. DeMar Hamlin's in the house. You're expected to win this game. And not to mention, you have how many fans that are buying tickets to this neutral site to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game? Better send those refunds because that's – but anyways, I think it's a little overrated, the whole Diggs ordeal. I think he was just frustrated. I think he was just he's a very passionate, very animated guy, and I think that's just all this was. But, yeah, Josh Allen, I mean, he struggled. And
the reason –
go ahead.
Oh, you go. I was gonna say the reason too is like you said with they didn't stop the Bengals defense. I mean, how many times did Mike Hilton end up back there totally untouched?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna run a quarterback blitz, how many times you would think like, hey, maybe we should prepare for that? And what the most surprising was to me is how much more equipped it looked like the Bengals were playing in the snow than the Bills were.
Yeah.
You would think a team that plays in Buffalo, New York, of all places, would handle the snow better than a team from Cincinnati, Ohio. At least you would think.
You would think, but you would
think. But the last thing I'm going to say about this, though, is of course we have the AFC Championship game that is set between the Chiefs and the Bengals, and when are we going to realize that this rivalry that we pretended Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen was, the real sequel to Manning versus Brady has been Mahomes and Burrow?
Yeah,
I think it's time to recognize that now.
I think it is. Yeah, I think the problem is when Burrow got hurt so early on in that career that we kind of just forgot he existed. and then we kind of were dealing with like the phenomena of last year of the Cincinnati Bengals. It's hard to think about them as like, oh crap, they're actually here to contend because I felt like such a feel good out of nowhere story that like
Mhm.
adjusting to them being like an actual good consummate franchise is now just finally starting to creep in on us. It's the realization in a way.
So yeah, I think we'll have plenty to say after that game next week because I am looking very much forward to that.
There
But
will be much worrying.
but of course, I think that wraps up the AFC, and I think we're going to get to the most boring of the two NFC games first, just to get it out of the way. And
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the Eagles' 38-7 win over the Giants. And look, there was more buzz on social media about Pam Oliver absolutely killing it since 1995, and the fact that one of the first down chains broke, than there was really about the game. Because,
Yeah.
pun intended, the quote flying around Twitter, because you get it,
Yes.
yes, you
Fly
got it.
Eagles fly.
Fly Eagles fly,
Fly Twitter fly.
or go birds, whatever. Jalen Hurts saying that he's nowhere near 100%, but the Eagles were 100% better than the Giants. So Matt,
Yes.
what went? So like, was this just a good win that they picked up the previous week for the Giants, or are the Eagles just that much better?
I think the Eagles are just that much better. I mean, we talked about like how Buffalo hadn't drafted a Pro Bowler in 4 years. It feels like every guy the Eagles acquire now, just whether it be through draft or through free agency, just makes the Pro Bowl. I mean, their defensive line is healthy now and it's absolutely stacked and amazing. The offensive line isn't 100%, but still pretty damn good. They've got an excellent quarterback. I mean, I will think I would compare that to the flu game, like I think Nick Sirianni did. That was a
Yeah.
bit strange. I mean,
You mean the food poisoning game?
yes, the food poisoning game. Either way, I don't know if I compare that to either one of those Michael Jordan performances, regardless of what had happened to him. Because I mean, they've traded well, they've drafted well. What else can you say? I mean, they're just a very complete team, which is why the NFC Championship is going to be so good. We have two complete teams who you could argue their weakest position is quarterback.
I don't know about the Eagles' weakest position being quarterback, but I don't know. I'm
Well, you
I'm
know what
high.
I'm
I'm a Jalen Hurts supporter personally.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. They don't have quarterbacks who are like in the Burrow Mahomes category. So yeah, that's just it for me. I mean, the Vikings, we all kind of knew that they were a paper tiger. The Giants came out of nowhere, impressed me, impressed everybody. Brian Dable's the coach of the year, no question. So I mean, I wouldn't be the Giants. I think are the more interesting story. I could see them improving on this record next year, or I could see them going back to being 5-12. I really don't know where they're going to end up from here, but what I do know is that Philadelphia is just a very very complete, well-rounded and well coached group of guys.
So it's funny just how wishy-washy Twitter fans are because after the win over the Vikings, um, Daniel Jones was getting a lot of love on Twitter. Now
Yeah.
he's right back to being that meme, that guy that he would be playing Eli Manning in a movie about Peyton Manning joke that I always keep seeing fly around.
Okay, that's hilarious.
It is hilarious because it's low key accurate, but
He
it's
does look like him.
a little bit, but it's still funny how like inconsistent fans are. But because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the Eagles dominated both the lines on both sides of the ball. Games are still, regardless of how much skill position players do impact nowadays games still are won and lost in the trenches, and that's exactly what happened
Yeah.
with the Eagles today. Um, rushing wise for the Eagles, they had 44 carries, 268 yards, 6.1 yards a carry. They have those three Pro Bowlers on the offensive line really got that unit going. They earned their money this game. And of course, defensively, we shouldn't be surprised by this. This is a team that led the NFL in sacks by a wide margin. And they're the
Yeah.
first team in NFL history with 4 down linemen to pick up 10 plus sacks in a season's time. They picked up right where they left off, and they sacked Danny Dimes 5 times, and they
Yep.
made him
That's what they do.
uncomfortable a lot more. So yeah, it's just complete utter domination. But yeah, the Giants, I actually think they still come out of this with a more positive note, because really, who predicted them to be here?
I know I did not.
I didn't either, but I mean, of course, what do we know? We're just kind of goofball podcast hosts.
Yeah, we just have fun with this.
We make fun of Twitter fans for a living. What do we do? What do we know? We're not football experts.
We are not. We are
Yeah.
not.
I am a failed athlete.
I used to work in athletics. I worked in athletics for like 10 years.
I was low-key waiting for you to say, and I'm a never athlete.
No, I mean, hey, that's not true. I was the MVP
That's
of
right.
the sixth grade basketball league. I want you
Hey.
to remember that.
Get that ball out of my face.
Get the ball out my face.
I forgot. Matt was Roy Hibbert of sixth grade.
Yeah, it was Roy Hibbert in sixth grade. About all I could do was stand there and go, eh.
So, anyways,
don't plan on me to hit a jump shot, or you were doomed, man. You were doomed. But if you got me down the lane, I was like the best defender there ever was, because I was like a foot taller than everybody. So
So I hear Matt wants to play horse. After the show, Matt wants to play horse with me.
No, I'll just concede everything. You can have the entire damn stable if you want. I will not play horse.
Fair enough. Anyways, I think it's time to move on to the actually more entertaining game.
Blue Factory.
This guy. We're going to get on to the more entertaining game of the NFC, and we're going to talk about Dallas versus San Francisco, where the 49ers would win in a very close 19-12 matchup. And Matt, a lot of what I'm hearing before the game is about how great this Brock Purdy story is. And I think a lot of people are going off the rails by saying this, but I wanted to ask you, does Brock Purdy deserve a documentary series with this run?
No.
Thank you.
It's a great story. I'm happy for Brock Purdy. I think he's a good kid. I'm happy the 49ers have decided to keep rolling with him because he's 7-0 as a starter. But let's not act like that this team isn't just the Philadelphia Eagles of the West Coast. They have 3 guys who can cram the ball down your throat. They've got Deebo Samuel. They've got George Kittle. They've got Trent Williams. They've got a loaded offense. Their defense is coached by one of the hottest coaching candidates who I would not mind seeing at the Horseshoe, wearing the horseshoe on his little lapel next year, and D'Amico Ryans. They've got a great defense with a lot of guys. They've got probably, shockingly, if you would have told me I would be saying this 3 months ago, I would be laughing. They've probably got the defensive player of the year in Boza. Yeah. I mean, they're a loaded squad, and I need to see more from Brock Purdy, because in this game against that Cowboys defense, which is also very good, he finally started to look a little bit more rookie-ish. He looked a little bit rattled. And no, he did not make costly mistakes, which is the one thing that you'll be fine if he doesn't do. As long as he doesn't make any mistakes, you're good. But he still, we were all talking about the amazing Kittle catch. It wouldn't have had to been so amazing if he hadn't have overthrown him a little bit, He finally started to look a little bit more like a rookie. Credit where credit's due. He did hit Kittle eventually. He didn't turn the ball over. But I'm not going to crown this guy as like being the next Tom Brady until I get a bigger sample size with maybe, a couple injuries, God forbid, or something like that. Because this 49ers roster is just so well built. I mean, what else can you say? There's nothing that can't be said. It's just a very good team. And I want a little bit bigger sample size before I proclaim this guy Tom Brady when he could be a Trent Dilfer or a Brad Johnson.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you 100%. Unless he goes on to win Super Bowl this year, I don't think he deserves any kind of docuseries, because I don't think this run is personally better than what we saw from Big Ben his rookie year. Because if you remember, Big Ben went out and won his first 13 games his rookie year. A lot of people forgot about that, and he lost. His first loss of his rookie year came in the AFC Championship game to Tom Brady. And we got about 10 minutes to go. But of course,
or even Joe Burrow last year with no offensive line.
100%. But yeah, we got about 10 minutes to go. So, I mean, of course, as you probably saw, all the memes about Brett Maher and, being public enemy number 1 in Dallas as a kicker. And I saw a couple memes of the guy from Waterboy saying the only kicker that could save the Cowboys. And that kind of made me laugh, not gonna lie. But of course, other than a couple of things are really getting the most heat right now. And of course, the Cowboys clock management at the end of the game. And I think Matt, I got to ask you, as Colts fans, is our awful play put to rest?
What
the hell was that?
I think it is less because just given the circumstances, that was a random Sunday night game against the Patriots. That wasn't in the freaking divisional round with a chance to tie the game. That wasn't the last play of the game. That was just a horrible play that was miscommunicated on a random Sunday night. This was the divisional round of the NFC. In a game where you're down 7 and you have a chance to drive down the field and put it on the kicker's foot, and you put Ezekiel Elliott at center with no
Who
offensive
got
line.
lit up?
Oh my god.
Lit up.
And then you just run it on one of the stupidest short throws. I thought Kirk Cousins surrendering at the end of the Vikings Giants game a week ago was bad. I don't know what the pass to Turpin was. There were no options for a hook and run on that.
He didn't have
What
time
was
to do it anyway.
do?
He didn't have time. He got smacked as soon as he caught it.
He couldn't have even. I mean, Dak Prescott couldn't have even teleported over there and caught it quick enough. I mean, I don't think Mike McCarthy's job. I don't think he gets fired for this. The only way Mike McCarthy gets fired is if Sean Payton comes knocking on Jerry Jones's door and says, "Hey, Jerry, let me in." And Jerry Jones is like, "Okay, you can be my new head coach." Horrible Jerry Jones impersonation. But that's, I think, the only way McCarthy gets fired because I think they did just enough to say, "Hey, we're building something." But there comes a point where you just have to ask, how many years in a row are we going to like turn the Cowboys into a contender and then have them just bow out of the playoffs in the most laughable fashion imaginable
Did you
before
did
you just
did you did you forget who we're talking about?
I know, but they just bow out in the most laughable fashion imaginable for 2 straight years against a team like the 49ers who are, like I said, are very good and they're still in the game. You just got to eventually just give it up and just say, "Look, this ain't working. We got to get somebody new in here."
Yeah. And just for time constraints, I'm going to go ahead and just I think open this conversation. I think Dak Prescott gets a little too much heat, but I think a lot of that does come with the territory of being the Cowboys quarterback.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
but yeah, that play was an absolute debacle. And of course, to make matters worse, a player that's really been growing on me a lot, Tony Pollard. He's on a
Gets hurt.
contract year. Yeah, he broke his what was it, his fibia, his tibia. I get those two mixed up. I'm not really the best with bone with the names
His
of
lower
bones.
leg is messed up.
His lower leg is messed up, and it's a contract year, which is very
Yeah,
very
you hate to
unfortunate.
see that. You really do.
Yeah, and he was having a great year, and of course, he had a lot of support on social media saying that he should be the halfback one in Dallas over Ezekiel Elliott, and that he made a very strong case for that. But it was just a complete late game debacle that we've seen from the Cowboys. And to be honest, of course, Dak, because he is the starter, is going to get a lot of criticism for this. But this is no different from the last 30 years we've seen from the Cowboys. And last time I checked, Dak Prescott has not been an NFL quarterback for 30 years. Their problems are way, way, way deeper than Dak Prescott. They have a lot of talent, and it's a shame that they can't do anything with it because that roster is very good. But yeah, Dak gets more criticism than he should. I still think Dak's a good quarterback. He made some very costly mistakes, but I agree with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that's my guy, and I'm riding with him. So, anyways,
That's the quarterback.
that's my quarterback. Not quite the little Terrell Owens reaction, but still one supported as QB1. But I think one of my also favorite moments after the game was Nick Bosa on IG posting America's team won again. Gotta love that
Yeah,
shade.
that's pretty good.
That was
That's
pretty good.
that's some A+ trolling right there. And
That is
the other thing that Pete was shocking me today, especially, was seeing how people were reacting to the Cowboys like actual Twitter account, how they tweeted about the game. It's like Dak Prescott turned the ball over twice with a chance to win, and it's like, whoa! And everyone's like, calm down. The Cowboys things are usually kind of passive aggressive. So I went back and did research, and sure enough, yeah, they really are passive aggressive down there. I'm
mm,
like, this is the team run media. Is this passive aggressive? I
they
think that
are.
just I think that just proves your point, Les. That when you're the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, the ceiling is the roof when it
Yeah.
comes to standards. I
All right,
mean, if
MJ.
you're not winning the Lombardi Trophy or the MVP, then you are, for lack of a better term, then you ain't nothing.
It's kind of like being that point guard for Duke.
Yeah.
That's a feeling that I
Can't
know
win.
all too well. And here in about an hour, I'm going to see how it pans out against Virginia Tech. We've struggled on the road all year long, so we'll see, buddy. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about.
No, we'll do a college show some other time. We got lots to discuss there too.
Oh yeah, I mean we still got plenty of topics to talk about in the third season of the Less is More Sports podcast.
But yeah, I mean, going back to Dallas, I mean, Dak Prescott is taking an unusual amount of heat, but I think it's just because
Yeah,
we're in such a quarterback rich time when it comes to like we're in a transitional period now. We're like the older greats, the Brady's, the Rogers, etc., are phasing out, and we're watching the next level of greats come in, and Mahomes and Burrow and Allen, and Lamar Jackson. Even though I know you'll disagree about that one a little bit, and Dak Prescott just kind of gets left in the middle.
might as
He's
well throw
too
Justin Herbert in there, make it the trifecta
yeah,
there. But
Justin Herbert. I mean, he's got an arm. Being a quarterback on social media is still better than being me. But the point being, Dak Prescott's kind of like it's stuck in this no man's land where he's 29, he's approaching 30. He's not one of the great old ones. He's not really part of the new young ones. He really is, and I disagree with a lot of people on this on terms of athleticism. He really is closer to Kirk Cousins, a guy who's just kind of stuck out in space, who's really good some years and games and absolutely terrible in others. They're kind of like the lost generation of quarterbacks in a way. So I think that's part of it too. You see like the greatness of the past, you see the up and comers and the youth movement, and you're just stuck with Dak Prescott, who's good, but he's not as good as either one of those groups. And you're
right,
just kind of like, damn.
yeah. So, anyways, that concludes everything we have to say about these slate of games on the Less is More Sports podcast. And of course, as we have a very good slate of games for the both AFC and NFC championship games coming next week that Matt and I, of course, will be talking about. And of course, we are a couple weeks away from Super Bowl. And in between that, we have an AFC and NFC Pro Bowl coached by the Mannings. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you still couldn't pay me to watch the Pro Bowl.
I'm going to watch it just because they're coaching it. But anyways,
Well,
that concludes this episode of the Less is More Sports podcast. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel. Be sure to follow our content on Facebook and Twitter and newly TikTok. I'm starting to get more involved in the TikTok game because we are a social media. Yeah, we are a social media podcast. So I think I should be definitely more well diversed and more hip with the kids. So yeah, starting to have a little more TikTok content too.
Les thinks he has Riz now.
You got me on that one. I'm starting to feel old with that one.
I win. I know the Gen Z lingo. Look at me.
Look at that. You got me. But anyways, that concludes this episode. And without further ado, Matt and I are out.
Please don't make me come up with a name.
Yes, please don't make Matt come up with a name.